Thank you, everybody, for visiting today to experience our Peaksplus program. So many of you probably already know what Peaks is, but for those of you that are new to it, we'll give you a brief overview of when and why and how we created Peaks and Peaksplus. So I'm Matt Schustrick, VP of Sales here at Paragon, joined with Tim Vickers, our Senior Database Manager. So thanks, Tim, for being here today. He's the founder, creator of Peaks and Peaksplus. So be really exciting. Thanks, Tim, for being here. So just to start, got some quick housekeeping notes here. We're going to have everybody on mute, just like all the rest of our webinars, if you all have been a part of those. But if you have questions at all or comments during the webinar, please use the QA button or the chat feature, either one. We'll monitor those and make sure we address all those here at the end. Also, along with the rest of our webinars, they're always recorded. Recording will be sent out to everybody on the call after this. So you'll definitely have a copy of that to distribute to any of your counterparts that maybe haven't been able to make it. So first, I'll start out, talking about Peaks. What is it? Well, Peaks is an online marketplace that houses parts records and sourcing solutions. So if I talk about why we developed the program back in 2016, in a sense, like all great companies, we listen to the customer. We listen to, you guys that are on the phone or on the webinar here. So we realized how hard it was for sites to get in touch with other sites to purchase inventory in emergent situations. We also streamlined the accounting portion of it, eliminated inefficiencies in the accounts payable and receivable side. But furthermore, we even handled all the logistics of those transactions that we needed. So we quickly became the go-to place to find parts. And we weren't just utilizing nuclear data, we branched out, and it's definitely evolved. But one thing that's kept consistent with our Peaks program is our response times to requests. So, Peaks ultimately houses over 9 million records between inventory data from the nuclear fleet and decommissioned sites, surplus warehouses, gas and coal sites, as well as Paragon's IP, meaning if we've dedicated or reverse engineered a part or it's something we've repaired in the past, all those solutions are listed in Peaks and available for you to see. So it's a searchable website, no login required. If you just go to our website, you'll see a searchable toolbar there that's all driven off the part number. So when you go in and type in your part number, off you go. We really wanted to create a place that people could go and see all options for buying parts right at their fingertips. So that's exactly what Peaks gives you by searching all available options at once. So now Tim's going to get into the meat and bones, during the demo here, but a brief overview of Peaksplus. He's really built a very intuitive and user-friendly program with a very simplistic dashboard that you're going to see. So it houses all of your site-specific data regarding to the CAT ID. So all of that CAT ID information is all in one place. We found ourselves in a situation where we kept hearing complaints from the customers on their ERP system, regardless of what manufacturer they used. So they'd have to jump from screen to screen or page to page to find everything they were looking for, multiple clicks to try and get, all the information that they need to make certain decisions on what they were doing that day. So we didn't want to just create another screen that might at some point be helpful or not helpful, or just another screen to use. So we wanted to set out to make things easier once again and create a go-to dashboard or portal, if you will, that has all the information you're looking for all in one place, all on one page. So that's the essence of Peaksplus. So I'd love to sit here and talk to you all morning about it, and I could, but it's really best for you to jump in, take a spin with Tim, and see what you think.
Thanks, Matt. Peaksplus is a tool that brings together data from a lot of sources and helps you make informed purchasing and obsolescence decisions. We pull information from your ERP system like Passport or Maximo or SAP and other systems that you have at your station, maybe an action management system or inventory management if those are separate from your ERP system. We gather work orders, material requests, master equipment lists, and inventory. And we gather the same inventory from across the industry. We have over 9 million inventory records, as Matt said, both nuclear and fossil. We have inventory from our Paragon warehouses, from our supplier partners' warehouses, and also from decommissioned sites like Oyster Creek. And we also pull in data from our ERP system and our project management system to give you up-to-date project statuses. Peaksplus is designed to be a daily use tool that alerts you to conditions within your inventory that you might not have known about if you hadn't gone looking for them. And it also provides the tools for you to resolve those issues and enlist the help of other people within your organization, as well as Paragon, to resolve the problems. So let's take a look at how Peaks can be used in your daily routine. So we come in on a regular day and we're going to evaluate a purchase. So let's take a look at what that looks like. We come into this page and we search by a cat ID typically. Let's take a look at the information we have on the page. First of all, I want to point out that I'm logged in as a mythical Denali station person, and we're a part of a fleet, which will come into play in just a little bit. We see the results over here. See that this item has been flagged for follow-up. Someone must have come in and marked it with a flag here. We can also see that this item can be repaired by Paragon. In the lower left-hand corner, you see our 24/7 contact information, both a phone number and an email address. Someone is always on call, so you'll always be able to reach someone. You can also text this number, and the information that you text will be entered directly into our ticketing system. If you are calling outside of typical business hours, which are 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time, then we do recommend that you call because that certainly stands out more than a text message or an email message. If you're going to be submitting information from Peaksplus, like a request quote or a notification of any kind that you're going to see throughout this presentation, we recommend you go ahead and do that first so that we're on the same page as we're talking through the items. Notice also in the lower right-hand corner that we have an interactive chat. You can reach out to our representatives and chat with them online. If it's after typical business hours, then this chat button will switch into a support button, and any information you entered there will be entered directly in our ticketing system as if you had texted it. So same kind of thing, enter the information here in support first and then follow up with a call. If your need is emergent, you can expect a 30-minute response time. If it's non-emergent, then you can expect a response time within the same business day. So let's take a look at the data on the page. We've pulled information from your ERP system. Actually, it's provided to us. We don't reach into your system, you send it to us. And we've brought together all the important components for reviewing your inventory in one place. Sometimes these things can be scattered across multiple panels, multiple pages, so we put it all into one place for easy review. You can see how many items you have in stock, what the current min max is. You can see usage for the last year, last 3 years, whether it's seismic or EQ qualified, whether it's critical, single point vulnerability. You've marked it as repairable. If you have any shelf life for it, and for the demand. The demand is rolled up from the open material requests. We'll take a look at these in just a second and get some more detail. We can see in this situation that the current demand will deplete our stock, take us below our min, and initiate a purchase decision. Going to the right, we see alternate sourcing options. We see across the industry that there are 6 in stock, 0 overstock in use at 3 other stations. That means this item may be pretty hard to get from other stations unless it's an emergent need. We also see that Paragon, backing up the icon that we see here, has repaired this item in the past. So that may be another solution for you in the moment. If you want to submit a request, just as you'd expect, hit the request quote button, enter the quantity that you're looking for, whether or not it's emergent, and if you're also interested in the engineering solutions, and an additional message. And that will send you a copy of that request and send it directly to our support team. Notice the alerts. And this is one of the things that we talked about just a moment ago, alerting you to conditions within your inventory that you might not have noticed otherwise. Here, we see that at least one other station across the industry has shelf life for this part. So we see that we don't have shelf life here, but this could be an equipment reliability issue if other stations think this does really need a shelf life. So we would want to take a look at that. It may be that you just continue your work, but you want to flag it for follow-up as someone has done here. Or you might want to send it to someone else within your organization and say, I'm getting this alert about shelf life. Should somebody take a look at this? And then you also see that it's marked as a potential parts quality item, that at least one other station across the industry has identified this part as PQI. And if the part is included in work on a critical component, you should really consider testing on it. Well, we can see at a glance here that our only outstanding demand is non-critical. So maybe it's not as big of an issue, but we'll see an example where it does indeed appear to be an issue. At a glance, we can see the information related to any open material requests, the work orders that go with those, how many are requested, whether it's critical, non-critical, when it's scheduled, and if it's a part of an outage, we'd see that here as well. So this one is coming up in June. If we click on it, we can get more detail. Again, so we don't have to hop all over the place within our native ERP system. We can get a lot of information here just at a glance. More information on the material request and the work order, more information on the equipment itself, including the location, AP 913, ASME, and even what the model work order number is for this current work order, along with the status of each of the tasks related to that work order. We also see that we have some potential duplicate CAD IDs with stock. So this is finding it at our station for the same part number, but with a different CAD ID, and it's the same queue level. So we may not have to purchase this item at all. This would be an immediate cost savings from not having to buy the item. Now, you'll still have to take a look and make sure there aren't any configuration differences, because those still can be an issue. But if it is exactly the same, you would just update this potentially in your ERP system and say, no need to purchase. We found it at this CAD ID. So let's take a look at example number 2. It's a very similar example. We do see the same alerts here, but this time we see we also have inventory available within our fleet, 2 other stations within our fleet. So this number of stations does not include us. 2 other stations do have it. They have 6 overstock. That's very good for us, and 11 in stock. Also across the industry, we see 18 stations in use, and 4 overstock and 110 in stock. In addition, we also see that Paragon has reverse engineered this item. So yet another option for us to pursue. As I said, the alerts are the same, but in this case, where we're looking at the potential PQI, we see that the open work, both open items are indeed on critical components. And it's coming up very soon, just the end of this month. So if we haven't already, we really should consider testing on these items, or at least investigating whether testing is really needed. Let's take a look at example number 3. In this case, we see a new alert stating that making a recommendation about reducing the min-max. We see that our 36-month usage, we've only used 2 in the last 3 years, and the current min-max is 6 and 10. So we might want to take a look at that. Some information that we don't currently have included, but we would like to include the full work order history so that you could see perhaps the reasons those min-maxes were set. It could be that they're being driven by PMs that don't even apply to your station anymore. So again, having all that information in one place to make that decision is very useful. Let's take a look at example number 4. And we see a couple of things here. First, since the first item that we've seen that has multiple part numbers and manufacturers listed, you can click on any one of these and drill down to get more information. And we see that we do have this item in several different queue levels, queue level 3, 4, and 1. So that might be a solution, particularly if we're in an emergent situation. So it's worth taking a look at. Also notice that we didn't find any alternate sourcing solutions for this. Didn't find any across the industry or any of our supplier partners. And we also don't have any engineering solutions. Well, we recommend that you don't give up at this point. We recommend that you go ahead and submit a quote just as if we had found it here and treat it exactly as you would have before, because it may be that our team can find this item through other sources, maybe by contacting the OEM directly, maybe by talking to other supplier partners for which we don't have data already loaded into Peaksplus, or alternate sources. I actually found two examples just this week where we found items with alternate sources that weren't available anywhere else and were helpful to the customers. And one of those two items actually was obsolete. So that was a great outcome. The real lesson there is don't give up just because you don't find it here. We can still help you. Let's take a look at example number 5. I hardly need to draw your attention to this big red box that pops out right at you. This is the don't buy recommendation. This is to help manage inventory levels across your fleet, and also think about contingency buys in those situations. So typically this criteria is going to be designed by your station, by your fleet, to help you keep your inventory levels at optimum levels. In this case, we put together criteria that said we have 6 in stock. The demand of 5 takes us below our min of 2, which would cause us to consider a purchase, but we still have some in stock. If it had gone all the way to 0, then we would not have made this recommendation. We also take a look at all of the stock that's available out there. We see that between our fleet and the rest of the industry, there's 85 overstock out there, and that's more than 3 times what our current max of 6 is. So in this situation, we feel pretty confident to say you don't really need to buy at this time. Now, ultimately, you of course have to make your own evaluation. There may be other data that you have access to, or you have an understanding of the situation on the ground, and you need to reject the recommendation. We do encourage you to still follow through and say whether you accepted or rejected it to help refine this process. So if you accept 9 out of 10 recommendations, the team can feel pretty good that they have a good set of criteria here. And of course, the opposite, if you reject 9 out of 10, then it's back to the drawing board. Maybe more information is necessary. Maybe things like usage need to be considered. So that's part of a process to continue to hone this criteria to give the best possible outcomes. So far, we've been taking a look at evaluating purchases on a daily basis. We can also use this for solving obsolescence. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Well, that starts out much the same way. We search by a CAD ID or part number and get information for that item. And we see right away an alert saying this item is potentially obsolete. At least one other station across the industry has identified this part as obsolete. Now, what do we mean in this situation when we talk about obsolescence? Obsolescence is obviously a situation that has plagued the industry for many years and for many years to come. And everyone has a slightly different definition of obsolescence. What we're talking about here is data that has been vetted by engineers to say, yes, indeed, this is an obsolete part. We're not reading the tea leaves of inventory statuses. If it says obsolete or no perch, we're not saying that's an obsolete item. We're only marking it as obsolete if someone has intentionally said, yes, indeed, this is obsolete. We're not using any industry tools as input. It's strictly coming provided by the stations themselves. So if you had a list of top 100 or top 1,000 obsolescence issues, you could send that to us in a spreadsheet. We'd load it into the database, and it would be used for this kind of evaluation. Now, it may be that as part of that input, you used industry applications that gave you a list of, say, 10,000 items that were obsolete, and you narrowed it down to your 100 or 1,000 most important. But you took a look at them. You just didn't take for granted that it said they were obsolete. So we feel pretty confident that we're giving you the best possible information here in making this assessment. While we're here, let's take a look at digging a little bit deeper with advanced search options in solving obsolescence. So we bring this up and we can take a look across our station for all inventory that is potentially obsolete. And the outcome that we get here is pretty typical, 400. And now this may be far less than you would expect, but far more than we want to sit and sift through right now. We don't really want to boil the ocean and solve all obsolescence for the entire station all at once. So let's take a look at the things that we really care about, in particular, things that currently have demand. Well, that brings us down to a list of 16. That's much more workable, and we can work through the list and we can take a look at the demand and see when it's due. So this is in August, and we have a little bit of time to work on that one. But if it showed up the end of end of March, like the one we looked at earlier, that doesn't give us as much time to address the situation. And we might want to drill in further. We might say, show us only those that are critical. So these are items that impact the critical spares. Or we could come back and say, for all of these items that are potentially obsolete with demand, show us the ones for which Paragon has repaired them. And there's just one in that particular list. One other thing that we find really pretty useful, we've used PeAks for many years. PeAks began as an internal analysis tool, and then it developed into the customer-facing PeAks application that some of you've already seen, and now we're in Peaksplus. But one of the things we use in PeAks a lot is looking for information, searching on an entire list of cat IDs at once or an entire list of part numbers at once. So if you have a spreadsheet, and in this case, we just have a sample spreadsheet where we've gone through and reviewed all our boards and we find these are the ones that are repairable at our station. You can just highlight this column, copy the whole column, return to the application and paste the cat ID list in there. You don't need to remove the header. It's smart enough to remove the header. And also if you were doing a part number list and you had not applicable or per description, all of those get weeded out and only legitimate part numbers are searched. And then we can see all of the items in our list. We can go through these one at a time. And of course, apply these other filters and say, of our list of repairable cards, how many of those are potentially obsolete? And we see that 12 of those match that criteria. Or if we're looking at it a different way, instead of potentially obsolete, of the ones that we know we can repair, how many might Paragon help us repair? And so that comes up with a list of 36. Now we've taken a look at solving obsolescence and evaluating daily purchases, but there's another component that we find very useful, and that's being able to review the status of your open purchase orders. So the information here comes from our project management system and also our ERP system, so that you can see the target ship date for items that are coming up and what the current status is. We see at a glance that these top three are in a little bit of trouble. We'll take a closer look in just a second. This one is potentially at risk based on the fact that parts have been ordered, haven't been received, and in just, 15 days, this item should be shipping. So we want to keep an eye on it, but it's not really in the danger zone yet. And then the rest are all lights are green. These are in October, far enough in the future that they're innocent until proven guilty. We're going to assume that everything's good until we hear otherwise. So taking a look at this first one, which should have shipped a couple of weeks ago now, it looks like, pending client approval. So this means that Paragon is waiting on information from you, approval of documents or approval of plans, and may need that information from you in order to proceed. So you can contact them directly from here. You don't need to look up who's responsible. You don't need to say who's the right person to talk to. This will go directly to the project manager, Tammy Crawford. Say, I thought I sent everything you needed. For this. And then send that off. You can also, of course, reach out via chat or by the phone number. One of the recommendations we had from our project team was to add the phone number right here next to this contact. So we'll be having that included as well. Any of the above options will be available to you, so you'll know exactly who to contact and get an up-to-date status. In this particular item, we see that the parts were ordered, but they were delayed. So we're going to reach out again. In this case, it will be to Doug instead and say, did these parts come in? Spelling is inversely proportional to the number of people that are watching you spell. And then this last item, we see that it was supposed to ship yesterday. Maybe we'll reach out and say, Judson, did this actually ship yesterday or not? Or maybe we'll just wait and see. We should receive a tracking number and be able to track this item once it has shipped. So we've looked at the items that we have open. Our hope, and we'll mention this again in closing, that we may be able to provide information from other suppliers in this same location that are willing to share statuses with you so you can check on your outstanding statuses all in one place. Next, I'd like to show you some canned reports that we have. So let's start with potential obsolescence. And you'll see that we found 16 items potentially obsolete that have demand. As fate would have it, this is exactly the report that we came up with by doing our own with advanced search options. You'll have the ability to save your own advanced search options just like this, so that in addition to these canned reports you have over here, you'll have custom reports created by you or your team that you can run again and again based on changing conditions. Of course, demand is going to be a big variable, and as things change, this item will fall off the list and others will be added to it. So you want to come back and perform those reports again and again. This report is much like the one that we did on our own as well, potential obsolescence with solutions. Paragon can offer solutions for those items. And this is one that I talked about early on, critical spares without stock, where we found that an item had been marked as a critical spare, but we didn't have any in inventory. And that's a condition we really do want to avoid. And so we see in this situation, we do have 54 CAT IDs where we've marked it as critical and we don't have any in stock. So we may want to address that. And these are all items with demand. And so again, we can take a look at when that demand is and when we need to resolve the issue. Okay, that concludes the demo portion of our webinar. The first question we always get for Peaksplus: how much does it cost? Well, it's free, but a login is required, unlike the existing Peaks application. You will have to contact us for login information and also grant access to your network. Everything is restricted to corporate networks. We also would need a full set of your data if you're not already providing it: work orders, material requests, equipment, master equipment list, inventory, and obsolescence, those kinds of things, if you do have that available. As you can see in our examples, your data is not shared directly with utilities, but it is used for creating aggregate information to provide those alerts that I showed you and guidance about conditions within your inventory. The data we're asking for is possibly already being submitted for use with other industry applications, which makes this whole process a lot easier. There are likely programs and scripts already written to extract that data, and we could work with your IT team once you submit your request to get that data uploaded to Peaksplus. We accept the data using whatever mechanisms are already standard with your organization. You don't need any special programs, but we can provide a template for what data is expected. The data can come from multiple sources. It doesn't have to be just your ERP system. It can also be, as I said early on, action management system or inventory management system. If those are external to your ERP system, it doesn't have any impact on the way we process the data. We stitch it all together no matter how many sources you have. We store your data on secured Amazon cloud servers. And in the very near future, we're migrating our applications and databases to the Amazon Gov Cloud. The Gov Cloud is designed specifically for hosting sensitive data, regulated workloads, and it addresses the most stringent of US government security and compliance requirements. So with all of that said, let's turn to the questions that we have in our Q&A area here. And if there are any questions that you think of after the webinar, please feel free to contact Matt or myself directly, or the main Paragon information email or phone number for a follow-up. So let's see what questions we have here as I try and bring up the Q&A window.
Got them up too, Tim. So got our first question. How is Peaks different from Rapid?
So the main difference for how Peaksplus is different from Rapid is that it is dealing with your inventory. We're looking at it a CAT ID centric and providing you information based on processing the data from all of the other utilities across the industry. So we're helping you not only with sourcing, but also with engineering solutions, and also with alerting you to conditions like min-max recommendations, the fact that this item might be obsolete based on some curated data that it is obsolete, that you may need to do some testing for a PQI item if you're using it in a critical component. So that's how those things are different. It's meant more to be a tool tying your data to the rest of the data in the industry and making those recommendations.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. So as far as, so that was for Peaksplus. To clarify on the Peaks portion, in case the person asking that question was specific to Peaks. So Rapid houses inventory data specifically, without any consideration to work order data. And they also, most plants do not list their critical spare data. So Peaks, on the other side, is a purchasing marketplace. So you go there to see what's actually available, versus maybe what's just in inventory. So Peaks will take that inventory data, the raw data of on-hand quantity, min max levels, and then subtract that all along with demand data to show you what inventory is actually available out there for purchase, even outside of emergent, situations. So, we'll build the algorithm, or we have the algorithm built of on-hand quantity minus the min minus the on-demand quantity, and that gives you, what's actually available out there to purchase right away. And you can purchase, items, as many plants do, right through Peaks.
And something else I'll add to that, Matt, is that one really key difference is that it's the Paragon team is helping you with the purchase. It's facilitating all the transfers. It's facilitating all the work and locating and the contact list. And one thing I intended to mention earlier on when I was talking about sourcing in Peaksplus is that we have up-to-date call-out lists for utilities that are participating in the program. So we know around the clock who we need to call in order to locate the parts. So it's largely about, the Peaks application supports the service you get from Paragon. It's not a solution in and of itself. It's connecting you to our specialists to help you meet the needs and do the sourcing and finding engineering solutions.
So the next question, Tim. So how and where do I access? Let's do how and where do I access Peaks, and then how and where do I access Peaksplus? Why don't we go through both of them?
Okay, so to access Peaks, you go to our main website, paragones.com, and in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a search for your part here kind of box, and you'll put your part number in there and start the search right from there. If you have trouble remembering paragones.com, you can Google Paragon Energy and it'll take you to the same spot. And again, that is a free service. It's available to everyone. You just log in, you don't log in. You just go to the website, you put in your part number, start searching, and then it connects you to our sourcing specialists. As far as Peaksplus, you will need to contact us so that we can grant access to your corporate network. And then we'll create a login for you and everyone at your organization, and also work on getting all the data loaded that we've been talking about.
Okay, Sam asked, what if we are looking for parts that are not in our ERP system and we want to check availability? That sounds like a perfect search for Peaks.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And this is good for Peaks or Peaksplus. But the idea is if you start with Peaks, then you could go and, like I said, go to paragones.com and put in that part number, and you can see what kind of availability there is across the industry and also within Paragon warehouses and Supplier warehouses. If you're within Peaksplus, the same kind of thing. So you could search either by your CAD ID or by the part number, and it will give you that same kind of availability information. The one thing about the Peaksplus solution is it can get very specific on the things that it tells you are available across your fleet or others in your alliance, so that you can see, as we saw in our examples, there were 2 other stations within our fleet that had that item in inventory, and we can't make that determination when we're on Peaks, the current Peaks tool, because we don't know who you are. You haven't logged in, so we can't make it that much more granular for you. So those are the 2 big differences.
Good. And Mr. Bowman asked, is there a field for cybersecurity and cat IDs marked for cybersecurity? So I'm guessing, why don't you talk about, the customizations on, different fields that are flagged for different utilities and what we can customize there, Tim. So I'm guessing he's asking if there's cybersecurity requirements that are flagged, or also maybe if something's a critical digital asset that they have flags for that maybe they'd want to incorporate in Peaksplus.
Well, as we showed in the examples, we don't currently have, Ed, this cybersecurity flag, but it's easy to add with the uploads. In fact, I would work with John Gallagher for Exelon in order to get him to add that to the data feeds. But any other fields like that, and that's a great point. Other things that you think are important for your routine review that may be all over the place within your ERP system, we want to know about those and include those within this tool so that you could see them here. And probably if you identify something like this, a cybersecurity indicator with a field, there are going to be other stations that will benefit from that as well. So we would definitely want to include things like that within our display.
Yeah, and kind of to add, the whole panel or dashboard, if you will, is completely customizable to whatever you want to be viewing. Right, Tim? I mean, everything, it's really site or fleet specific of what you specifically want to see in each of those panels and panes. We kind of developed it and developed the demo here today to show you, what we believe is very beneficial for day-to-day activities, but everything is customizable and built for your specific fleet.
And one thing I did forget to point out in the data that's also represented, we didn't currently have any to load and display, but things like sticky notes from Passport or other notes from within your ERP system, or the ability to add notes within Peaksplus, all of those things are displayed here as well. So you get a robust set of data all in one place about your cat ID.
Great. One more. Bobby, will you be generating an algorithm to recommend min-max levels?
We've definitely talked about that a lot. That's a great question. And we're still thinking about doing that. When we did do that, it would definitely be one of those things that we do in a custom sort of situation where we work with each station or fleet to make those kinds of recommendations, because everyone will have slightly different kinds of criteria to include there. It is something we've talked about. It's something that we will work with each customer on if that's something they would like.
Yeah, absolutely. So the answer to that question is yes. We'll definitely work with you to make sure it's an agreed upon algorithm in the fleet, and we can implement it. The same goes for a buy no buy option. For maybe contingent reservations, as Tim showed before. We would just work with site or fleet to develop that algorithm that's agreed upon to make those buy don't buy recommendations. So.
These are great questions.
Okay, another one from Ed. Is there a report to match inactive reservations to matches and peaks? So Paragon to provide a quote to the buyer. So for anything that's an inactive reservation, can Paragon provide a quote, for anything that's a match?
That's something we haven't really considered. I sure think that's something we could do. I don't see why not. We have all of this data all in one place, and we do a lot of other similar kinds of analysis with it. This is just not one that we've thought about. So I don't see any reason why we can't do that, Ed.
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions, Ed, by the way. I'm out of questions here. I'll give it another minute just to make sure, or another 30 seconds or so, to see if anybody has anything else that pops in their mind. Questions, comments. As Tim said before, feel free to reach out to myself or him with anything, moving forward. Be happy to have a fleet specific demonstration for everyone in your fleets or at your sites, where you think it's of interest. We got another one from Dave. Yes, we can. So Dave's just clarifying, we can separate out the active from inactive reservations in Passport. Yes, we will be able to see those and separate those out. So good clarification, Dave. Thank you. Bobby asked, will we be able to receive a copy of the presentation? Absolutely, yeah. We'll send this presentation out with kind of all the screenshots of the examples that Tim sent, since it was a live demo. I'll just import those into the presentation and get it out to you guys, or everybody on this call. So we have a comment kind of question regarding OPG, work orders, demand information, work order schedules. There may be security issues with sharing that, but we can definitely we can have our rep contact your corporate supply chain and work through those. Absolutely. As Tim said, everything's stored on secure servers. We're going to be moving to the Amazon Gov servers to add additional security, which is the highest security you can get. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tim.
Yep, that's correct. And we do have options. I know there are certain restrictions with data from Canada. Of course, Amazon does also have servers in Canada on which data could be stored, so that could be an option as well. We could work through those situations with you so you get the most benefit from Peaksplus.
Okay. I think that about wraps it up. So again, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be very interested in talking to everybody. As I mentioned, we'll definitely be able to do site specific or fleet specific demos for everybody, and happy to get the talks going. So all right,
thanks a lot for your time today.
Yes, thank you very much for your time, and we will let everyone go. Have a good day.